Behind every bit of mom wisdom is a story of a real mom and real kids just trying to love each other well. Whether you're cozied up on the couch with a mug of coffee or out for a walk, you're welcome to join us as we share stories and laugh, learn, and grow together. It's the iMom Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the iMom Podcast. I'm Abby with Megan and Chloe. And once again, Mary Jo Wise is with us. Mary Jo is a mom of two teens. She has done extensive research and writing on AI and its impacts on kids and families. This is a three-part series. In our last episode, we talked more generally about AI. So if you're like, I don't even understand anything about this, go back, make sure you listen to that episode. In our next episode, we're going to cover AI and education, how our kids will encounter AI in school. But today, we want to dig into how our kids are using AI at home and socially, and how we can parent well in the age of AI. And, that to parent well, that means we have to actually know what they're doing and what they're using, or how it can impact our kids' hearts. And so, Mary Jo, we're just so glad you're here to share some of your wisdom again. So thanks for being here.
I'm so glad to be back.
So how are kids, let's talk about play first. Like, how are kids just using generative AI to play and to pass the time?
If you're talking about older kids, like middle school and high school, they're having fun with the chatbots like ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity, perhaps, Claude, Mistral. But they can ask questions about like health-related questions or fun games to do on the weekend, or just anything they want to know. If they're curious about learning Japanese, or they have a Taylor Swift obsession, and they want to just kind of like learn more about that. That's one way to go into it.
My friend's daughter asked one of them to write a song professing her love for her celebrity crush in the format of a Taylor Swift song. Wow. So like it was a poem or lyrics about this celebrity crush that she had, but she said, write it in the form of Taylor Swift. And she said it was very, very accurate. And she felt like professing her love via that new creation. Yeah.
You can mess around with getting new songs produced through your chatbot. It's just, it can become very addicting, even for a parent, to just see all that it can do. Even writing your, Valentine's card to your husband, it can help you with that. But younger kids, like I would say the tween and teen, are getting onto character AI. They have a lot of users. I think something like 20 million users of character AI that have an account. You can get a free account. And they're chatting with celebrities, like fake celebrities on that platform to pass the time. It's fun. I've heard about that in schools. If they have 5 minutes at the end of class, they'll goof around there. Younger kids, unless the parent gives over their phone or a computer, I don't really think kids are really playing around with chatbots at this point, unless it's a joint activity with a parent or a teacher. So they're using it more for educational purposes.
What about, Alexa or Google Home? Because I have a 5-year-old, and I don't know if I doubt that's considered, I don't know if that's considered generative AI, but, talking to Siri, Google Home, telling them to play this song or whatever it might be. Would you say that falls into that space, or would you consider that a different category?
Yeah, those are definitely artificial intelligence. It's not generative, they're not creating new content, at least not yet. Siri is getting an update through Apple that should be out this fall and integrated into Apple phones. And then Siri is going to be able to do a lot more than it could before and create new content and be a real virtual assistant on your phone. So at this point, kids, if they're talking to Alexa or something in the house, it's not the generative kind that we're kind of all excited about in the tech world. But they may also kind of get a little confused about whether those are real people, like in there, like is Alexa really a person, or Siri? So, that's just something you gotta kind of talk to your kid about. They're not real. They're just a computer.
We're convinced in my house that Alexa disrespects me. She listens to everybody else, but I will like straight up talk to her, tell her to do something, and she just ignores me. And then my 11-year-old will be like, Alexa, blah, blah, blah. And she does it. I'm like, wow.
You're like, one more person in this house.
What do I have to do?
That's so funny. Mary Jo, as a mom yourself, are there any forms of AI that you wouldn't want your kids to use?
I'm a little on the fence about having a chatbot as a friend or companion. There are a few different platforms, and I only mentioned character AI, but there are others that I think are more adult oriented and they're not appropriate for kids. But I think kids need to get out in the real world and talk to kids face to face to really kind of learn social skills and gain confidence and that sort of thing. But that being said, I have read about these chatbot friends being used as kind of like a way to help kids develop these skills. Like if they're lonely or shy or just need a little extra attention or help, that working or talking to a chatbot friend that maybe you have created could fill that void for a very lonely person. But I wouldn't leave my kid just to that. I would still encourage, him or her to get out also and talk to real people.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Going back to what you said about character AI, because I actually had never heard of that until yesterday when we were talking about it. And then I went on the website as we were talking about it, and it was characters, everyone from Mario and Obi-Wan Kenobi to Elon Musk was on there. And I mean, so it was just so interesting to me that there was just such a wide range of real and fake characters, people, whatever you want to call it, on there. So can you give us some backstory to that? Like, how does that work? How does AI impersonate, for example, Obi-Wan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I first heard about this because my middle schooler came home and told me about it, and that friends were doing this and playing on it at the end of class when they had time. And I heard that some of her classmates were on talking to anime characters or Star Wars characters or whatever. And they were just like having fun, like it was a person. So I got on the platform and I was kind of looking around myself, and you're supposed to be 13 to sign up for your free account. And from there, you can chat with whomever. But basically, anybody can create a character on Character AI. So you don't have to be a tech person, and it walks you through how to do that. So some are better than others. I know that there's a very popular therapist character there that has a lot of appeal to teenagers, and it gives some people a semi-professional, I guess, person to talk to. And from what I read, that character was created by a psychology student, I believe. So he had some background on mental health, and I guess fed it information that was pretty good, and people are finding it helpful. But when I was kind of poking around, like some of them are just not things I would want my kids to see. And I mean, if any 13 or 14-year-old can create one, you got to question what's on their mind and what's out there. So
when you say create one, what does that mean? Like, where are they getting the language from? Is it then sourcing on the internet, like what Obi-Wan Kenobi would say based on the movies?
Yeah, that is partly my guess, but I did not dig deep enough to go through all the steps, because there were multiple steps where you pick your avatar's picture, what it's called, the one-line description, and it goes on and on and on. And I'm like, I'm wasting a lot of time going through this. So I don't know exactly how it's pulled, but my guess is it's probably a little bit of both, like personal knowledge and probably some pulling data from the internet. I could be wrong.
When kids are talking to on Character AI or talking to some type of generative AI, are there any cases where they're talking with other humans? Because I think that's always a concern for moms is there going to be an adult on there who's lying about being an adult? Like, is it always person to bot, or is it sometimes like social?
From what I understand, it's just person to bot, unless you buy a subscription, and then there might be more of a human to human and bot aspect to it. But I think too that they want to hook you in, like some of these other sites that I am not mentioning, want to hook you in, and they will kind of entice you to pay money to get more from your bot. And I guess so I'm kind of saying, but not saying, is they're racy, some of them, I guess. Like, so they're taking people's money. I will say adults' money. Because it's satisfying a need that adults want. But I definitely don't want my kid giving a bot money and, going down that path.
Money for what? Like, what does that even mean? Money to like talk to you?
For your bot to say and do certain things, like sexy things.
No, I'm glad you said it because it's a key to it. I feel like growing up, kind of some of the dangerous things as an internet user and a preteen were chat rooms, right? Like, I think parents were concerned about their kids going into chat rooms and talking with strangers on the internet. And, I've heard all sorts of stories about scary things, but now moms are having to be concerned about, talking to a robot that's saying inappropriate things to them.
Yeah. And even if you're talking to like the psychologist character or a different character or a different bot, and you're asking it questions like, what do you think I should do? Or, I've been having these, I don't know, headaches lately and describing my symptoms and, what is your advice? You might not get the right advice. And that's not something I don't want my kid to kind of, get advice from a bot like that. So talking to your kid is really important.
You mentioned using AI as a therapist. Are there benefits to that as opposed to seeing a regular therapist?
Yeah, I would say that there is at least one big positive side. And that is that there's been an increase in mental health issues among teenagers and getting in to see a professional, I've heard, is not easy sometimes. So there's a wait period, and a therapist bot could fill that gap for people as they wait to see a professional. Again, having parental oversight, I think, would be important, but it could be that Band-Aid until you get in to see someone professional. Yes.
So I think, we've talked a lot about the risks of AI, but there definitely are some benefits. And I personally love AI. I just think with any tool, we have to make sure that we are monitoring it as parents and making sure that our kids are utilizing it as a tool and not as, Mary Jo, like you said, a companion or a true therapist if they do need true therapy. But one of the things I was looking at the other day is how it's being used by predators. And I think that it can take a fully clothed person, as we saw with Taylor Swift and different people, and generate completely nude photos of them. And it's happening more to girls. I can't remember it was another podcast I was listening to. I can't remember who was talking about it, or else I would reference them. But they were saying, obviously it's happening more to girls, and kids are using it to generate photos of their friends and classmates and distribute them, which is dangerous because that's considered child pornography. But then also predators are using it to generate pictures of boys as well for predatory purposes. So it's just there's definitely some dangers and some risks, but I think it's just super important to talk to your kids about obviously sending any pictures, even if they're just joking around and having fun. Like, that's just a really dangerous area to cross into.
Is there a way to protect them from being their image being used in that way? Like, how do we protect them if they're fully clothed from having a naked picture of them shared?
I mean, Mary Jo, you're the expert, so I want you to answer it. I think that's where a lot of these companies have not set the proper rules and regulations and protections for kids around this type of technology, which I think is very dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to keep your kids safe in that way because you can't guess who's going to be up to no good. But what you can do is teach your kids how to not be the person who does those things to others. And it starts young when you're talking to your kid about consent and taking photos and whether or not you should pass them on, even just regular photos. So kind of from the ground up, talking to kids about proper phone usage once they get a phone and whether or not their friends really want to have their image taken. But what we put online of our kids now on social media, we should just be, cognizant of that because some people could pull them and just do whatever they want with them. I would say it's not something to be totally scared about. It's not like happening in the billions or anything or millions or anything like that. But it has happened. So it's something just to be aware of. I think to give people hope, it's good to know that states are working on passing laws to regulate AI, especially deepfakes. And just to give you a number, as of February of this past year, there were 407 AI-related bills that were introduced from 40 states, when a year ago, it was only 67 bills. So this is something that states and legislators are getting on top of, trying to regulate, keep kids safe, keep people safe.
I think one of the like fun things that you can do with your kids to also teach them is to do like a quiz with the pictures side by side. I know we all did a quiz that, asked which one's the fake and which one's the real picture. Megan got a 10 out of 10.
That's
got a 6 out of 10.
Just because I've had to, so for our daily content, we always include an image, and we use Adobe Stock. And one of the great features of Adobe Stock now, as our producer Taylor knows, is that it will generate AI pictures for you. And so I have had to make tough decisions between using an AI photo and using a real photo. And there's a few ways you can tell. I would say, it's kind of good to show your kids pictures of an AI generated image versus a real image, because they're softer. They're not as grainy. They have less detail. Taylor, what else am I missing anything else?
Sometimes like there's fingers missing or things like that.
As of right now, it does a terrible job generating humans from scratch. Now, taking, like we were talking about earlier, a picture of a regular human and creating a nude photo, it's better at that. But Taylor, what were you going to say?
Eyes and hands. You can definitely tell. Yeah. Eyes, hands, and teeth.
Yeah.
Teeth.
Yeah. But I would say, like, let's say it's an animal. Because like in that quiz, it was like a sunset or an animal or whatever it might be. If you look closely, there's just like details missing and it's less sharp. It looks soft, like as it has a soft, blurry focus on it. But I think it's a fun game, to your point, Abby, with your kids to kind of get them used to it so they can tell and hopefully spot it. Now that may change, it may get better, but at least as of right now. So Mary Jo, are there any ways that we can stay a step ahead of our kids to help them not only utilize it, but also keep them safe?
I think, again, just talking about consent and how to use responsible AI tools with their friends in the classroom or at home. And I think I read a recent story about kids who were just taking pictures of teachers and then their peers and just manipulating them. And I think it's a respect issue. And so just talking to your kids about your values and your morals and just teaching them, I guess, right from wrong. But if they're on the other side of it and they're the victim, being able to come to you and talk about what they suspect might be happening, or talking to a teacher and just kind of standing up for themselves, that's important too, because we can't control others. We can only control ourselves.
Some of us, when we think about staying a step ahead, that means content filters. Like we just think, okay, well, I have to put some kind of filter on. Is there such thing as a content filter with AI?
I don't think there are content filters when it comes to AI. I know that ChatGPT does have guardrails that you can't ask certain questions, dangerous questions, because they have safety baked into their data. Outside the big chatbots, you go smaller and they don't have those same guardrails. So kids theoretically could ask, dangerous questions, like hurting themselves or, how to make a bomb or something like that. But on the big ones, there are guardrails in place, and ChatGPT won't answer those questions. But also there are apps that do the disrobing, then create the nude photos. So checking your kids' devices, making sure they don't have those things on their phones, even if they're trying to bury them. You kind of be a little bit of a detective, I guess, but just kind of be aware, keep the conversation going.
Yeah, Mary Jo, it may feel tempting to moms after hearing all this information to want to just bury your head in the sand and not accept kind of the way technology is going. But can you talk a little bit about that approach versus accepting where we're going and, teaching it to our kids in a safe way?
Yeah, definitely. And I know people who just want to just bury their heads in sand and just kind of are hoping that it'll go away. But I think that it would be wise to just stay on top of it. We have an advantage right now of staying ahead of our kids and not falling behind like we did. I think a lot of us did with social media, where kids got onto their phones, they're downloading all these apps. We don't know what's going on these apps, and they're getting in over their heads. And now we're finding out that there are some mental health issues coming up from using certain social media platforms. But with AI, I think that if we're learning with them and we're talking to our kids about it, that's our best opportunity to keep them safe and have fun with it and use these tools to make our lives easier. to learn more, to have more fun with our kids. There's just so many possibilities out there and fun things I think we're going to talk about later that you can do with your kids with chatbots and AI tools. That to ignore it, I think would be a huge mistake because there are so many benefits out there waiting for you.
Let's talk about some of those fun things. Like if you could name 3 things that you love doing with your kids or that a mom of like a 7-year-old might love doing with her kids, what would they be?
So I have a son, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't know, what am I going to do with him? We kind of don't have a lot of things in common. So I could say, besides like, Minecraft or whatever. So I might be like, hey, ChatGPT, I've got a 7-year-old and he likes Minecraft, but he'll go for walks with me. He likes being outside. Can you give me some ideas that we can do this weekend? He likes science, and I'm just looking for some fun things to do. And that could pop up and just generate some quick ideas for us to do. Or my daughter really likes math and tinkering around with tools. And so I could ask, hey, we're going to the park this afternoon. Give me some ideas of what I can do to teach her some math while we're there. But also as a really fun story creator. And I remember when we were little, my daughter really liked the pigeon stories. The pigeon rides the bus and, Mo Willems, don't let the pigeon ride the bus. Okay. Well, just play along here with me. So at the end of the story, you're like, okay, the pigeon does his thing, but what happens next? And you could ask ChatGPT, okay, the pigeon, he's not riding the bus now. And what's going to happen to him? Because he really has this crazy desire to be a driver. And your chatbot can give you the continuation of the story. And I think that's really fun. You can be creative.
It's like fan fiction, but like the kid book version. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Mary Jo, thank you again for being with us. We have so many articles on imom.com about AI, and I'll post them in the show notes. I'm also going to post links to our All Pro Dad podcast in case you want to share this with your husband and give him some tools that he can use with the kids to play around with AI. Our next episode is going to be about how AI is impacting our kids' education. So make sure you come back for that one. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the iMom podcast. iMom is the motherhood program of the nonprofit organization Family First. Along with our fatherhood program, All Pro Dad, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the iMom Minute, by going to imom.com/subscribe and get tons of great ideas, insight, and inspiration. The iMom podcast is hosted by me, Abby Watts, along with Susan Merrill, Megan Tigner, and Chloe Blumenthal.